I paid for my sister's wedding, but she didn't invite me because I didn't fit the theme. She regretted it big time. The text came on a Tuesday morning while I was in the middle of a client meeting. We need to talk about the wedding. Call me when you're free. I quickly tucked my phone away, smiling apologetically at Mr. Harrington across the table. Sorry about that. Now, where were we with the investment portfolio? That was my life in a nutshell. Always working, always building. Morgan Reynolds, CEO of Reynolds Financial Solutions, a company I had built from the ground up after putting myself through business school. Not glamorous, perhaps, but I was proud of what I'd accomplished. My sister Olivia, on the other hand, lived for glamour. Growing up, we couldn't have been more different. While I spent weekends studying or working part-time jobs, Olivia was attending parties, cultivating her social media presence, and dating the sons of local celebrities. Our parents adored her effortless charm and beauty, often showcasing her at family gatherings while I stood in the shadows, the responsible but forgettable older sister. Morgan, you're so talented with money, they'd say. But look at Olivia. She just lights up a room. I never resented her for it. How could I? Olivia was magnetic, with her perfect blonde waves and infectious laugh. And despite our differences, we were close in our own way. I protected her. She brought color to my life. After my meeting, I called her back, expecting the usual wedding questions. For the past 6 months, I'd been her unofficial financial sponsor for what she called the wedding of the century. Her fiancé, Jake Windsor, fitness model turned wellness influencer with 3 million followers, had proposed in a viral video that involved skydivers, trained doves, and a flash mob. The video got 8 million views. Olivia's engagement ring selfie got even more. Hey, Liv, what's up with the wedding? I asked, settling into my office chair. Morgan, thank God. So, I just found out the venue requires an additional deposit for the garden lighting installation. It's only $30,000, but Jake's latest sponsorship payment is delayed, and we really need to secure it by Friday. Only $30,000.
As if that were pocket change.
But I didn't flinch. I never did. Send me the details, and I'll wire the money tomorrow. You're literally saving my life, she squealed. This wedding is going to be insane. Did I tell you Vanessa Winters might come? Her assistant said she's considering it. Vanessa Winters was apparently some socialite influencer Olivia worshipped. I wouldn't have recognized her if we shared an elevator. That's great, Liv, I said, genuinely happy for her excitement. How's the guest list coming along? A slight pause. About that, we're finalizing everything this week. It's getting so complicated with all these VIPs. Jake knows so many important people. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Well, just let me know where to show up. I'll probably need to buy something new to wear. Another pause, longer this time. Liv. Morgan, you know I love you more than anyone, she began, her voice taking on that syrupy tone she used when she wanted something uncomfortable. But Jake and I have been talking, and we've decided on a very specific aesthetic for the wedding. I frowned, confused. Okay? The thing is, she continued, we're going for this ultra-glamorous, high-fashion vibe. All our guests are influencers, models, or celebrities. The whole event is being photographed for Elegant Bride and Jake's upcoming brand partnership. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Olivia, what are you trying to say? I'm trying to say that maybe you attending isn't the best fit for what we're going for. The words hit me like a physical blow. You don't want me at your wedding? It's not that I don't want you there. It's just... She sighed dramatically. Morgan, you're amazing at what you do, but you know you've never been into fashion or aesthetics. You wear pantsuits to dinner and haven't changed your hairstyle in 10 years. We have a vision, and every single person there needs to fit that vision. I sat in stunned silence, my free hand gripping the edge of my desk. It's not personal, she rushed to add. It's just aesthetic choices.
You understand, right?
You're always so practical about these things. Practical. The word felt like an insult now, though she'd always used it as a compliment when asking for money. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice unnaturally calm. I've paid for your venue, Your dress, your catering, your honeymoon, and countless other expenses. I've written checks totaling over $300,000. And now you're telling me I can't attend because I don't look the part. When you put it like that, it sounds awful, she whined. Look, we can have a special dinner after we get back from Bali, just you, me, and Jake. Wouldn't that be nicer anyway? You hate crowds and photographers. I closed my eyes, trying to process the magnitude of her selfishness. All those years of being the reliable sister, the one who helped her out of every financial mess, who co-signed her first apartment lease, who paid off her credit card debt 3 separate times, and this was how she repaid me. Morgan, say something. I understand. I finally replied, my voice hollow. Really? Oh, thank God. I was so worried you'd be upset. You're the best sister ever, you know that? Jake thought you'd freak out, but I told him. Morgan always understands. The conversation continued for another few minutes, with Olivia rambling about floral arrangements and celebrity RSVPs, seemingly oblivious to the fact that she had just shattered my heart. After we hung up, I sat motionless in my office as the evening shadows lengthened across the floor. Employees said goodnight, but I barely registered their voices. My mind kept replaying Olivia's words. You don't fit the theme. I had never felt so betrayed in my life. Not just betrayed, humiliated, used, discarded once my usefulness had been exhausted. As tears finally began to fall, something else stirred within me, something I rarely allowed myself to feel. Anger. White-hot, clarifying anger. I wiped my tears, straightened my practical blazer, and opened my laptop. If Olivia wanted a picture-perfect wedding without her plain, practical sister ruining the aesthetic, then that's exactly what she would get. Or rather, what she wouldn't get. Because while Olivia might control the guest list, I controlled something far more important. The money. And I was about to teach my little sister a very expensive lesson.
I didn't sleep that night.
I paced my apartment, a glass of whiskey in hand, replaying every moment I'd supported Olivia over the years. The college tuition I'd helped with. The rent I'd covered when she was between gigs. The connections I'd leveraged to get her that influencer marketing job she ultimately quit because the vibe wasn't right. By morning, my plan had crystallized. I sent Olivia a text. I understand your decision. I want your day to be perfect. Wiring the final payments today. Wishing you and Jake all the happiness in the world. Her response came immediately. OMG, you're literally an angel. This is why you're the best sister ever. I smiled grimly at my phone. Olivia had always been easy to read. That same morning, I contacted my attorney, Diane, who had handled my business affairs for years. You want to do what? Diane asked, her voice echoing through my car's speakers as I drove to work. I want to stop all payments related to my sister's wedding, effective immediately. And I want to do it in a way that looks like administrative errors, not deliberate action. Morgan, you've already paid substantial deposits. Some of this money may not be recoverable. I understand. Consider it the price of my dignity. Diane sighed. I'll draft the letters today. But Morgan, are you sure about this? Family rifts can be. She uninvited me to her wedding because I'm not pretty enough to be in her photos, Diane. After I paid for everything, the rift is already there. Over the next 3 days, I watched the dominoes fall from a safe distance. I hadn't blocked Olivia on social media. That would have tipped her off. Instead, I observed like a scientist monitoring an experiment. First came the confused posts. So weird, the venue manager isn't returning my calls today. Hello? We have details to finalize. Then the thinly veiled panic. Note to self, never trust people to do their jobs. If you want something done right, do it yourself. Hashtag Bride Tribe, hashtag stressed but blessed. I was in a quarterly review meeting when my phone buzzed with a call from Olivia. I declined it and returned to discussing profit margins. 10 minutes later, another call. Then another. By the time I left the meeting, I had 7 missed calls and a flurry of increasingly desperate texts. Morgan, emergency. The venue says they never received the final payment. They're saying our date isn't secure. Call me ASAP. Why aren't you answering? This is important. I waited until evening to respond. In meetings all day. What's wrong? Her call came instantly. I let it ring twice before answering. Morgan.
Thank God.
The venue is saying they're going to give away our date if we don't pay the balance by tomorrow. There must be some mistake with the wire transfer. I kept my voice cool and professional. That's strange. Let me check with my bank. Have there been other issues? Yes, she wailed. The catering company called saying the same thing, and the florist, and her voice broke. The wedding is in 3 weeks. Everything was confirmed. This has to be some kind of mistake. I'm sure it is, I said soothingly. Banks make errors all the time with large transfers. I'll sort it out tomorrow. Tomorrow? No, Morgan, you don't understand. The Prestons just confirmed they're coming. They're actual billionaires. Everything needs to be perfect. I understand, Liv. I'll make it my top priority in the morning. I paused. By the way, did you finish the guest list? Just curious. There was a beat of silence. Yes, she said, her voice suddenly guarded. Why? No reason. Just wondering how many people will be there. For the payment calculations. About 200, she said quickly. Look, can you just call the bank tonight? This is really important. Banks are closed, Liv. But don't worry, I'm sure everything will work out exactly as it should. After all, this is the wedding you've always dreamed of, right? After we hung up, I poured myself another whiskey and opened my laptop. I had emails from Diane confirming that all payments had been officially delayed due to suspected fraudulent activity on my accounts, a common enough banking issue to be believable, but serious enough to cause real delays. Meanwhile, Olivia's social media had shifted from perfectly curated engagement photos to thinly disguised pleas for vendor recommendations. Anyone know an amazing caterer who can handle a luxury wedding on short notice? Asking for a friend. The responses flooded in, mostly from her influencer friends suggesting companies that charged $10,000 for a charcuterie board. But the real gold was in the comments from the vendors I'd already contracted. At Elegant Events. Olivia, we've been trying to reach you. Please call our office ASAP regarding your payment status. At Luxury Blooms SE, Ms. Reynolds, we've left several messages. If we don't hear back by end of day, we'll need to release your flower order. Olivia was frantically deleting these comments, but not before they were seen by her followers. The illusion was starting to crack. 2 days later, I received a different kind of text from my sister. The venue canceled on us. Jake is furious. His agent says this could damage his brand. Morgan, I'm begging you, can you lend us the money directly? We'll pay you back after the honeymoon. I'll send you my account details. I looked at those words, lend us the money, and nearly laughed. As if the hundreds of thousands I'd already provided were just casual gifts between sisters. As if she hadn't excluded me from the very event I was financing. I waited 6 hours before responding. Sorry, Liv. It just doesn't fit my schedule. I turned off my phone, poured a bath, and sank into the warm water with a smile. The lesson was only beginning. 3 days before what was supposed to be Olivia's dream wedding, I was enjoying a rare moment of peace. For the first time in months, my calendar wasn't crammed with wedding-related calls or emergency money transfers. I sat on my balcony with a cup of coffee and the morning paper, relishing the quiet. My doorbell shattered the silence. I wasn't expecting anyone, especially not at 7:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. Looking through the peephole, I froze. Olivia stood there, mascara streaked down her cheeks, hair pulled into a messy ponytail, a look I hadn't seen on her since our father's funeral 5 years ago. She was wearing sweatpants. Sweatpants. The woman who once told me she didn't own leisure wear because it compromised her personal brand. I considered not answering, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door. What happened to your schedule being too busy? She spat, pushing past me into the apartment. Good morning to you too, Liv. She whirled around, eyes wild. Is this funny to you? Do you have any idea what's happening? I crossed my arms. Why don't you tell me? Everything is ruined. She collapsed onto my couch, burying her face in her hands. The venue canceled completely. The florist sold our order to someone else. The caterer won't return our calls. And now, she looked up, her expression a mixture of rage and desperation. Now the Astoria Hotel says they never received the second half of the deposit for the reception, and they've booked another event. That's awful, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Banking errors can be so frustrating. This isn't a banking error, Morgan. I called your bank. They said there were no processing issues. The payments were never sent. For a moment, I considered continuing the charade, but seeing her there, finally facing consequences for her actions, I decided honesty might be more satisfying. You're right, I said simply. I didn't send them. The color drained from her face. What? I stopped all payments the day after you told me I wasn't invited to your wedding. Olivia stared at me, mouth open. You did this on purpose? But why would you do that? The question was so absurd, I actually laughed. Are you serious, Olivia? You excluded me from your wedding, a wedding I was paying for because I didn't fit your aesthetic. Did you honestly expect me to keep writing checks after that? But you said you understood. You said you wanted my day to be perfect. And you believed me? That's your problem, Liv. You've always assumed everyone exists to serve your needs. Especially me. She stood up, running her hands through her hair. Okay, fine. I messed up. I should have invited you. I admit it. But Morgan, the wedding is in 3 days. Everyone is coming, Jake's sponsors, industry people who could make his career. You can't do this to us. I'm not doing anything to you. You did this to yourself when you decided your sister wasn't good enough to be seen at your wedding. Olivia's face contorted, her usual beauty twisting into something ugly. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of me, of my life, my looks, my relationship. You're punishing me because you're a bitter, lonely workaholic who can't stand to see me happy. Her words should have hurt, but strangely, they didn't. All these years, I'd thought our relationship was complicated but loving, that beneath her self-absorption was genuine affection. Now I saw the truth. To Olivia, I was nothing but a resource to be exploited. You're right about one thing, I said quietly. I am punishing you, but not because I'm jealous. Because it's time you learned that actions have consequences. What am I supposed to do? She cried, panic rising in her voice. The wedding is falling apart. Jake's already threatened to call it off if we have to move to a lesser venue. His influencer friends are canceling because they say it doesn't seem exclusive enough anymore. That sounds like a you problem. Morgan, please. She grabbed my hands, suddenly switching to the sweet, pleading sister I'd always given in to. I'm begging you. Help me fix this. I'll invite you to the wedding. You can wear whatever you want. She swallowed hard. I'll even thank you in my speech. I gently removed my hands from hers. It's too late, Olivia. The vendors have moved on. Even if I wanted to help you now, I couldn't. It wasn't entirely true. With enough money, anything could be fixed. But Olivia didn't need to know that. She backed away, her expression hardening. You've ruined everything. My special day, my relationship, my reputation, all because your feelings got hurt? How petty can you be? Almost as petty as excluding your sister from your wedding for not being photogenic enough. Fine. She grabbed her purse. I'll fix this myself. I don't need you. I never needed you. As she stormed toward the door, I called after her. Olivia? She turned, a flicker of hope crossing her face. When it all falls apart, and it will, don't come running back to me. After she left, I poured another cup of coffee and returned to my balcony. My hands were shaking slightly, but I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time in our relationship, I wasn't the one scrambling to solve Olivia's problems. I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to my assistant. I'll be unavailable this weekend. Personal time. Then I booked a spa retreat at the very resort where Olivia had planned to spend her honeymoon. It seemed fitting. I hadn't planned to spy on Olivia's wedding day. Really, I hadn't. My intention was to be luxuriating in a deep tissue massage while she dealt with the ruins of her special day. But then my mother called. Morgan, where are you? Olivia needs you. I'd been expertly avoiding my parents' calls since my confrontation with Olivia. They'd always favored her, and I knew exactly whose side they'd take in this conflict. I'm out of town, Mom. Spa weekend. You need to come back. The wedding is a disaster. Olivia is devastated. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, not feeling sorry at all. But I've made my position clear. Morgan Elizabeth Reynolds. My mother's voice took on that razor-sharp quality that had intimidated me throughout childhood. I don't know what's going on between you two, but Olivia said you promised to handle all the payments for this wedding. She trusted you. A bitter laugh escaped me. Did she happen to mention that she uninvited me from the wedding? Her own sister? Silence on the other end. Then, what? Ask her about her aesthetic requirements, Mom. Ask her why she didn't want her unfashionable, workaholic sister ruining her perfect photos. Another long pause. Is that why you stopped the payments? To get back at her. I stopped the payments because I refuse to fund an event I'm not welcome to attend. It's as simple as that. My mother sighed. Well, you've made your point. She's invited you now. She's been trying to reach you for days. Too little, too late. Morgan, please. If not for your sister, then for us. Your father and I are standing in a half-decorated reception hall with 60 people instead of 200. The groom's family is furious. There's a cold buffet instead of the 5-course meal everyone was promised. We look like fools. For a moment, I almost felt guilty. My parents might have favored Olivia, but they didn't deserve public humiliation. Almost. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle, Mom, but this is between Olivia and me. After hanging up, I wrestled with my conscience for approximately 30 seconds before doing something I'd never admit to anyone. I created a fake Instagram account and began monitoring the wedding hashtag. Hashtag Windsor Wedding Wonders was supposed to trend with hundreds of glamorous photos from influencers and celebrity guests. Instead, I found a sparse collection of increasingly awkward posts. The first came from Olivia's college roommate. So happy to celebrate at Olivia Reynolds and at Jake Windsor today. Hashtag Windsor Wedding Wonders. The photo showed Olivia in her designer dress, which I'd paid for months ago, before everything fell apart, standing beside Jake in front of a hastily decorated arch. Her smile looked strained. Jake wasn't smiling at all. Another post from a fitness influencer I vaguely recognized, supporting my boy at Jake Windsor on his big day. Not quite the Astoria, but hey, love is all that matters, right? Hashtag Windsor Wedding Wonders. Hashtag Last Minute Venue Change. The attached photo revealed the venue, the community room of a local church, with plastic chairs and streamers that looked like they'd been purchased from a dollar store. I scrolled through more posts, each more revealing than the last. The celebrity chef had been replaced by what appeared to be grocery store platters. The live band was now a single pianist. The glamorous photo booth was just a wrinkled backdrop hung against a wall. But the most telling posts were the ones from Jake's family. Not what we expected for our son's wedding. Quite disappointed with the organization and transparency around this event. Hashtag Windsor Wedding Wonders. This one included a photo of Jake's parents, looking stiff and uncomfortable beside the makeshift bar, which appeared to be serving only champagne and bottled water. As I continued scrolling, a direct message popped up from an unfamiliar account. Are you Morgan Reynolds? My heart stopped. Had someone discovered my fake account? Who's asking? I replied cautiously. I'm Jake's cousin. I recognize you from photos in Olivia's apartment. Are you here? Things are getting ugly. I hesitated before responding. I wasn't invited. What's happening? The hotel where the reception was supposed to be held showed up demanding payment. Apparently, the deposit only covered half the cost. They're threatening to shut everything down if they don't get the rest. I stared at my phone in disbelief. Olivia had managed to salvage some kind of ceremony at the church, but had somehow convinced the Astoria to still host a reception, probably by promising payment upon arrival. A bold move, even for her. Is Olivia handling it? I asked. She's having a complete meltdown in the bridal suite. Jake's trying to negotiate with the hotel manager, but it's not going well. His father is furious, keeps saying he was promised a certain standard for his son's wedding. I felt a twinge of something. Not quite guilt. Not quite remorse. But something. What's Jake's father saying? I couldn't help asking. He's on the phone with his investment buddies, asking about Olivia's family business. Apparently, they were under the impression that she came from serious money. Someone told him you own a big financial firm? And there it was. The final piece of the puzzle. Olivia hadn't just been using me for my money. She'd been using my success to inflate her own status. Before I could respond, another message came through. Oh God. Jake just stormed out. His mom is crying. The hotel manager is telling everyone the reception is canceled. It's a total disaster. I put down my phone and stared at the spa ceiling. Despite everything, a small part of me had expected Olivia to pull it off somehow. She always did. Her charm and beauty had gotten her out of every tight spot in her life. But not this time. This time, the consequences were too big for even Olivia to charm her way out of. My phone buzzed again with a text from my mother. Jake left. The wedding's off. Olivia needs you. Please come home. I turned off my phone and closed my eyes. For the first time in our adult lives, I wasn't going to rush to Olivia's rescue. And it felt like freedom. 2 weeks after the wedding disaster, I returned to my normal life. The spa retreat had been exactly what I needed. Time to process, to heal, and most importantly, to stop feeling guilty about standing up for myself. I had muted my family's calls and texts, promising myself at least a month of peace before dealing with the fallout. But the internet had other plans. It started with a notification from my assistant. You might want to see this. Attached was a link to a popular gossip blog with the headline, Influencer Wedding Disaster. The truth behind Jake Windsor's canceled nuptials. My coffee nearly spilled as I clicked the link. The article was brutal, detailing how Jake had discovered his bride-to-be had been fraudulently presenting herself as independently wealthy, when in fact she had been bankrolled by her older sister, a successful finance executive who pulled funding after being excluded from the guest list. I was mentioned by name. My phone immediately lit up with calls, not just family, but colleagues, clients, even old college friends who'd seen the story. I declined them all and kept reading. The article included screenshots of Olivia's Instagram posts from the past year, designer clothes, exotic vacations, expensive restaurants, all with captions implying they were part of her glamorous lifestyle. The writer had done their homework, tracing payments back to my accounts, finding witnesses who confirmed I had been the one making arrangements for the wedding. The comment section was vicious. Imagine uninviting the person paying for your wedding. The entitlement. This is why you shouldn't trust influencers. It's all smoke and mirrors. Jake Windsor dodged a bullet. Who wants a wife who's just pretending to be rich? I felt a strange mix of vindication and horror. Yes, Olivia deserved consequences for her actions, but having her life dissected by internet strangers felt excessive, even to me. My contemplation was interrupted by a text from an unknown number. This is Jake Windsor. We need to talk. I stared at my phone in disbelief before responding. How did you get this number? Your parents. Look, I had no idea Olivia hadn't invited you. I just found out what really happened. Can we meet? Curiosity got the better of me. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe downtown that afternoon. Jake looked different in person than in his polished Instagram photos, more human, with shadows under his eyes and a day's worth of stubble. He fidgeted with his coffee cup as he spoke. I feel like an idiot, he admitted. Olivia told me her family had money, that her sister was this financial genius who managed their wealth. I never questioned why all the payments came from you directly. And if you had known the truth? I asked. He looked down. I don't know. That's what I've been asking myself. Would it have mattered if she wasn't for money? I'd like to think not, but your brand is built on luxury and exclusivity. I finished for him. He nodded. My followers expect a certain lifestyle. My sponsors do too. So, it was never really about love. It was, he insisted, then hesitated. At first. But somewhere along the way, it became more about the image we created together. The power couple thing. He ran a hand through his hair. When everything fell apart at the wedding, when I realized we'd been lying to my family, to our friends, I just couldn't do it anymore. And now my manager's in damage control mode. We're spinning it as Jake Windsor values authenticity above all else. My engagement numbers are actually up." He looked genuinely ashamed. "But that's not why I wanted to see you. I wanted to apologize. And to tell you what's happening with Olivia." I steeled myself. "What about her?" "It's bad. Since the story broke, she's lost all her sponsorships. Her friends have completely abandoned her. No one will be seen with her publicly. It's like they're afraid her downfall is contagious." He pulled out his phone and showed me a recent post from a fashion blogger. Let's talk about authenticity in the influencer space. The accompanying photo showed Olivia at a previous event, her face circled in red. "She's become a cautionary tale," Jake continued. "Everyone's using her as an example of fakeness in the industry. Even people who were at our engagement party, who accepted her gifts, who were going to be in our wedding, they're all acting like they always suspected something was off about her." I felt a pang of sympathy for my sister despite everything. The social world she built her identity around was notoriously fickle and unforgiving. "She's staying with your parents," Jake added. "She tried to contact me, but my manager advised against it. Said it would look bad for the brand." He looked genuinely troubled. "The worst part is, I'm following that advice." As I left the cafe, I checked Olivia's Instagram for the first time since the wedding. Her usually active account had gone silent, except for one post from 3 days ago, a plain black background with white text. Taking time away to reflect on authenticity, truth, and what really matters. Sometimes we lose ourselves trying to be what others expect. I'm sorry to those I've hurt along the way. The comments were turned off. I put my phone away and walked toward my office, my mind swimming with conflicting emotions. Part of me felt Olivia was only sorry she got caught. Another part wondered if this humbling experience might finally force her to grow up, to see the hollowness of the life she'd been chasing. Either way, the golden child had finally fallen from grace. And contrary to what I might have expected, I took no joy in it. But I didn't regret standing my ground, either. 3 months passed. Autumn turned to winter, and the whole wedding fiasco gradually faded from public interest. My life had settled back into its familiar rhythm of client meetings, investment strategies, and quiet evenings at home. I'd spoken to my parents a few times, stilted, uncomfortable conversations where we carefully avoided mentioning Olivia. I didn't ask about her, and they didn't volunteer information. December arrived with a light dusting of snow and the usual flurry of holiday party invitations. I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office when my assistant knocked tentatively on my door. "Ms. Reynolds? There's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment." From her hesitant tone, I already knew who it was. "Tell Olivia I'm busy." My assistant shifted uncomfortably. "She says she'll wait all day if necessary. And she looks different." Curiosity won out. "Send her in. But interrupt us in 15 minutes, regardless of how the conversation is going." When Olivia walked through my office door, I almost didn't recognize her. Gone were the perfectly highlighted hair, the designer clothes, the immaculate makeup. This Olivia wore jeans and a simple sweater. Her hair was its natural brown, pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her face was bare except for a touch of mascara. But it was more than the physical changes. She carried herself differently, the performative confidence replaced by something more hesitant, more genuine. "Thank you for seeing me," she said quietly, hovering by the door. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "My assistant will be interrupting us shortly. I have a busy day." She nodded, sitting down and placing a small gift bag on her lap. "I won't take much of your time. I just needed to see you in person." I waited, keeping my expression neutral. "I wanted to apologize," she began, her voice catching slightly. "What I did to you was unforgivable. Not just uninviting you to the wedding, but everything before that too. Using you for your money, taking advantage of your generosity, never really appreciating everything you've done for me." I raised an eyebrow. That's quite a realization. It took losing everything for me to see it. She looked down at her hands. "After the wedding fell apart, after Jake left, after all my so-called friends abandoned me, I had to face who I'd become. And I didn't like that person at all. Part of me wanted to savor this moment, Olivia finally admitting her faults, humbled, and apologetic. But another part felt hollow. This victory had come at such a cost to both of us. "What are you doing now?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I moved out of Mom and Dad's place last month. I'm renting a small apartment and working at a marketing firm. Entry-level position." She smiled weakly. "Turns out my influencer experience isn't worth much in the real job market." "And Instagram?" "Deleted it, along with all my other social accounts. It's liberating, actually." She looked up at me, her eyes clear and direct. "Morgan, I know I can't undo what I did, and I don't expect you to forgive me or to trust me again. I just needed you to know that I understand now. I see how selfish and shallow I've been. How I treated the one person who always had my back like an ATM machine with legs." Despite myself, I smiled at the description. "I'm not asking for your help," she continued. "I'm not here because I need money or connections or anything else. I'm just here because—" She took a deep breath. "Because you're my sister and I miss you. And I'm so sorry for everything." She pushed the gift bag across the desk. "What's this?" I asked, not reaching for it. "Open it." Cautiously, I pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a miniature shield. "It's not expensive," she said quickly. "I saved up for it from my new job. The shield is because, well, you've always been my protector, even when I didn't deserve it." I stared at the bracelet, unexpected emotion tightening my throat. "Mom told me what you said that day," Olivia continued softly, "about not fitting your new circle. I understand if that's still true. I wouldn't blame you if you never wanted to speak to me again." My assistant knocked and entered, right on schedule. "Ms. Reynolds, your next appointment is here." I nodded, then turned back to Olivia. "I have to go." She stood up quickly. "Of course. Thank you for seeing me." She moved toward the door, then paused. "Morgan, I really am sorry for everything." As she reached for the doorknob, I found myself saying, "Are you free for dinner next week?" She turned, surprise and hope flashing across her face. "Really? Tuesday, 7 p.m. Nothing fancy. There's a new Thai place near my apartment." "I'll be there," she said, a genuine smile spreading across her face. "Thank you." After she left, I sat looking at the bracelet. My assistant reappeared in the doorway. "Should I reschedule your actual next appointment? You don't have one for another hour." I smiled slightly. "No need. I could use the time to think." Later that evening, as I walked home through the light snow, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened. The betrayal, the revenge, the public humiliation, the apology. It had been a painful journey for both of us. Olivia had lost her glamorous lifestyle, her influencer status, her fiancé, and her social circle. I had lost the illusion that my sister truly cared about me as a person rather than a resource. But maybe, just maybe, we'd both gained something more valuable. Olivia had found authenticity and independence. And I had found my voice, my boundaries, and my self-respect. Would I ever fully trust her again? Probably not. Would we ever be close the way sisters in movies were? Unlikely. But perhaps we could build something new, a relationship based on honesty rather than convenience, on mutual respect rather than exploitation. I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist as I reached my building. "Sorry, Olivia," I murmured to myself, "but you don't fit my old circle anymore." I smiled, adding silently, "But maybe we can both fit into something better."